Нихуя себе.
Putin promised that Kyiv would become a crater. Days earlier, a Ukrainian attack had struck deep into the territory occupied by Russia. Russia said that dozens of people had died. The images were all over Russian television, which talked about nothing else. The entire country was in shock. The population wanted blood, and the government promised to deliver. They spoke of overwhelming revenge, said that patience had run out, and that the war had passed a point of no return. And then Putin sent the most feared weapon in the Russian arsenal against the Ukrainian capital, the Oreshnik. The missile that, according to him, flies 10 times faster than sound. That no defense in the world can shoot down. That burns as hot as the surface of the sun. That same night, 690 weapons were launched at once. The biggest attack on Kyiv in more than 4 years of war. And when the sun rose and the smoke cleared, the death toll was 4. Yes, 4. The world's greatest nuclear power promised the apocalypse and delivered this. And what the Ukrainians discovered when they went to the wreckage and opened that missile up to look inside doesn't just explain why Putin's revenge failed. It explains something much more disturbing about the hole Russia has gotten itself into in this war, because this failure isn't what it seems. It's scarier than a Russian victory would be. But to understand what was inside that missile, you first need to understand something that almost nobody tells you about these last few weeks. See, Russia didn't attack Kyiv because it was winning. It attacked because it was bleeding. And the one making it bleed was Ukraine. While the world was watching missiles falling on Ukrainian cities, Ukraine was doing something much quieter and much more effective right under Russia's nose. There is a road in the south of the territory that Russia occupies. It is the main road, the one that connects Russia to the Crimean Peninsula, through which almost everything that supplies the Russian troops in that region passes. The Russians used to call it the Road of Life. And in the last few weeks, it has become something else. The Ukrainians turned that stretch into a corridor of death. Dozens of military vehicles, fuel trucks, all burned out, rusting by the roadside. Things got so bad that the head of the Russian occupation in one of the regions had to issue a decree banning cargo trucks from circulating on an entire stretch of the road. Think about the level of humiliation. The force that invaded the country can't even keep its own supply road open. And it didn't stop there. Ukraine started to reach deeper and deeper inside Russia itself. It hit a factory that repairs military planes in the Rostov region. It hit an airbase in Voronezh where the fighter jets that bomb Ukraine take off from. It hit again a port city called Tuapse, which has a giant oil refinery, for the 5th time in just a few months. And it even reached Crimea, where a missile hit the building of the Russian central bank. Notice what was happening. It wasn't Russia attacking a defending Ukraine. It was Ukraine breaking through the Russian defense in place after place, and showing the whole world that it could strike wherever it wanted. If you want to follow this war for what it really is, and not the version each side wants to sell, subscribe to the channel, because that's exactly what we do here every week. And it was in the middle of all this siege that the attack happened that finally broke Russia's patience. Starobilsk. Here, I need to be honest with you, because there are 2 versions of this story, and no outsider has been able to prove which one is true. In the early hours of May 22nd, a Ukrainian attack hit buildings of a college in the occupied city of Starobilsk. Up to that point, both versions agree. From here on, they completely diverge. Ukraine says it targeted a military objective, a base of an elite Russian drone unit that was operating there. Ukraine claims it hits military infrastructure and follows the rules of war. Russia tells a completely different story. It says it was a massacre, that 21 people died, and that Ukrainian drones hit a student dormitory and then came back again and again after those who tried to help the wounded. Who's right? The truth is, nobody knows. The United Nations has openly stated that they have not been able to independently verify any of the claims about what happened there. And the reason is simple. The city is in territory occupied by Russia, and Russia does not allow any neutral investigator to enter. Several Western countries have pointed out exactly that, but here is the point that really matters for our story. For what came next, it doesn't matter which version is true. What matters is what Russia did with Starobilsk. They turned that attack into a national cause. Russian television covered it non-stop. And Putin made a public promise in front of the whole country: Ukraine would pay dearly. And when the leader of the world's largest nuclear arsenal promises crushing revenge in front of the whole country, well, the world holds its breath. Because everyone feared what was behind that threat, what he would really deliver. The pressure inside Russia skyrocketed. Putin asked his own army for retaliation options. Russia even warned that foreign diplomats should leave Kyiv, suggesting that something big was about to happen. Everything pointed to the most brutal blow of the war. The whole country wanted an answer, and Putin had promised to give one. And then came the night of May 23rd to 24th. Russia attacked. It was huge. The Ukrainian Air Force tracked 690 weapons in the air in a single night. Cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, lots of drones, with Kyiv as the main target. In terms of the number of places hit, it was the largest attack against the Ukrainian capital in the entire war. And in the middle of all this, the star of the show, Oreshnik. For the third time in the war, Russia fired the missile that Putin presents as the ultimate weapon. The one that flies like a meteor and, according to him, no defense can stop. This was the moment, the promised revenge, the announced apocalypse. And the result of all this was 4 dead. 2 people in the city of Kyiv itself, 2 in the surrounding region, more than 60 injured. Damaged buildings, and look, it wasn't because they had good aim or because they were only targeting military sites. What was hit were residential buildings, a shopping mall, a school, and even the Chernobyl Museum. Russia hit the city full of people. Even so, the toll was 4. Don't get me wrong. 4 deaths are 4 lives. 4 families that will never be the same again. There's nothing small about that. But think this through with me. After all that fury, after all those threats with the largest nuclear arsenal on the planet aimed at Kyiv, the world expected to wake up to a catastrophe. And what came was this. A 74-year-old Ukrainian retiree summed it up in a way that no analyst could have done better. He told a newspaper standing in front of his own damaged building that he hadn't felt afraid. And he said that the residents of Kyiv are already so used to it that their emotions have become numb. Think about that for a second. Russia fires the weapon that was supposed to terrify the entire planet, and the reaction of a 74-year-old man is just a shrug. But then, what was going on? Was it because Russia had become weak? Or was it the case that this super missile was a complete fraud? The answer came when the Ukrainians went to the place where Oreshnik fell, near a city called Bila Tserkva. There, they did something that Russia never expected them to do. They collected the wreckage and opened up the missile and looked inside. And what was inside is one of the most revealing things of this entire war. The warhead. The part that was supposed to explode and destroy was made of concrete. Blocks of metal and cast iron weighing 50 kilos each without a gram of explosives. And it wasn't an accident or improvisation. The Ukrainians say they found exactly the same thing all 3 times Russia used this missile. A fake warhead. And there's more. When the technicians examined the electronic part, the brain of the missile, they found components manufactured before 2016, parts from more than 10 years ago. And look, Russia sells the Oreshnik as a completely new missile, with cutting-edge technology. One of the Ukrainian specialists said he was surprised when he opened it because he expected to find new technology, but found exactly the opposite: old parts. And there's one more important detail here. Near where the missile fell, there was a real military target, an airfield. Oreshnik missed the airfield and landed on a group of garages. The missile breaks into 6 pieces as it comes down, and all 6 crashed onto 3 garages. The next day, a lady was seen rummaging through the smoldering rubble of her own shed, looking for the potato harvest she kept there. This is the scene, the most feared weapon in Putin's arsenal falling on a grandmother's potatoes. Now, we need to be realistic here. The Oreshnik itself is almost impossible to intercept. The Ukrainians themselves admit this. It flies too fast for defenses to stop it. But that's the strangest part of this story. Why? Because this missile only really causes damage with a real nuclear warhead inside it. That's what it was built for. This version we see here, with a conventional payload, well, the specialists who examined the wreckage came to a revealing conclusion. Russia can't make it work properly. The reason? The very way the missile flies at that insane speed interferes with its accuracy and payload. So, think about what that really means. Russia fired the weapon that was supposed to be its thunder and sent it without the lightning on purpose. Because the only way that missile could fulfill the threat that Putin made would be by putting the nuclear warhead on it. And Putin didn't put that one on, right? Why? Because putting the nuclear warhead on means starting a nuclear war that Russia itself doesn't want to start. So, what Russia sent to Kyiv wasn't the weapon, it was the weapon's message. It was a country banging on the table, shouting, showing its fist, but not throwing a punch, because it knows that actually throwing a punch could destroy itself too. And this is exactly where that phrase from the beginning makes sense. This failure is scarier than a victory. Look at what the wreckage of Bila Tserkva says about Russia. After more than 4 years of war with the largest nuclear arsenal on the planet, the toughest response Russia managed to give to the biggest attack against it was a scare. A thunder without lightning. Because the tanks didn't win the war, the drones didn't win, the regular missiles didn't win, and the Ukrainian siege only gets tighter and tighter. When all of that fails, what's left in the drawer is just one card. The card that could end the world. And that's why the real danger doesn't lie with the strong enemy, who's winning and knows what he's doing. The danger is in the cornered enemy who has already tried everything he knew, hasn't gotten where he wanted, is being pressured from within by his own people demanding blood, and who has, at the bottom of the drawer, that last card. The question that keeps analysts around the world up at night isn't whether Russia is powerful. It's what a country does when it finds out that all the power it has wasn't enough. For now, Oreshnik has flown with concrete. For now, it was just a warning. But this story is far from over. Each week of this war writes the next chapter, and we'll be here to tell you about every single one of them with the truth that most people don't show. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. To wrap up, I want to leave you with a question. Looking at this missile full of concrete, do you think this threat from Russia should still be taken seriously? Or is it just pure theater? Tell me in the comments below what you think. See you in the next video.